Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim, and Chris. On today's Tour Catch-Up,
Tsitsipas captures his first 500 title,
Navarro double bagels her way to the Merida Open crown.
and we look ahead to tennis paradise in Indian Wells.
Chris, today is the 3rd of March, and we are here to catch up on the week in tennis at Tennis Weekly HQ. As we head into the Sunshine Swing, Stefanos Tsitsipas has rediscovered his form of old. Emma Navarro dealt out a ruthless thrashing, and Jpeg, Jessica Pegula, picked up the title in Austin. Elsewhere, the Golden Swing also came to a close in Chile, and we saw the WTA unveil a new brand and identity. So, as always, Chris, a lot of tennis to get into this week. Also, Jannik Sinner. We've still got more. The Jannik Sinner news keeps on coming as well. We're going to be bringing that up in the second half. But first, there has been some tennis celeb spotting at the Oscars last night.
There has. I spotted at the actual Oscar ceremony, so not just the Vanity Fair party, but Coco Gauff was there. So that was very exciting. She was in custom Miu Miu, I believe. So someone is clearly very important. But I'm not sure why she was there, Joel. Did you?
I was thinking the same thing. Was she petitioning for? Because if I was there, I would be like, why isn't Challengers got any nominations? Was she
there
to
to ask the question, you think? The hard
difficult
question.
The hard questions, the difficult questions. Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. Listeners, let us know. Do you know why Coco Gauff was at the Oscars? Because it has left us stumped.
It has a little bit, but I mean, it's always fun. I mean, I didn't see Sharapova at the Vanity Fair party this year. Of course, Serena was there. I don't think Venus necessarily was in attendance, but Sabalenka was there, and we didn't see a picture.
Did she
of
not get a
everyone.
wild card to the Oscars?
I'm not sure she did get the wild card to the Oscars. She had to play qualifying for that, and maybe she didn't make it through.
Well, I mean, one Oscar winner that caught my eye this week was a certain Matthew McConaughey. I hope I'm right in saying he is an Oscar winner. I think he won for Dallas Buyers Club back in the day, but he was cheering on Jessica Pegula in Austin. He is, I think he's an Austin native. He's certainly from Texas. And yeah, he was there for her semi-final. He decided to come back for the final as well. And Jessica Pegula, I think she was it's quite sweet hearing her talk because she was a little bit starstruck by Matthew McConaughey, and I think she was also a little bit happy because it feels like he always just kind of talks and tweets about Tommy Paul.
Yeah, he's a big male American tennis fan, and so it's quite nice that he does regularly make sort of appearances around the globe at tennis. There's quite a lot of A-list sort of movie actors like Ben Stiller. He's often at the tennis as well. But she did get a shout out finally. I think obviously Tommy Paul does hog a lot of his attention. I think he's probably the number one Tommy Paul fan in the world, maybe except for producer Alina. But very fun to see him there, and it got a bit more spotlight on a 250 because I think we were thinking sometimes the star power, maybe Madison Keys not being there, would it suffer? Turns out you've just got to get a local A-lister Oscar winner on board.
I do love the fact that you get the celebrities. You know, you normally see them at like Wimbledon, US Open, and they're in the posh seats, but it's always nice and reaffirming, I think, to see them out kind of
Plastic chairs, melting in the sun.
Exactly, living it like normal tennis fans.
We haven't seen many at Challengers though, so at Challenger level we'll have to see if someone pops up at the Jakarta 95, 75.
It's the Rwanda Challenger this week, but Bernard Tomic is there.
Not exactly A-list.
I don't know if maybe B-list at best, but yeah, who knows? But Chris, what caught your eye this week on the tour?
Well, I mean, we've already sort of mentioned Jpeg. But it did come up that she is very generous with her sort of billionaire daughter status because it was announced that one of the doubles winners, Yu Yuan, actually said that Jpeg put on a private jet and invited everyone who was playing in the finals to join her on that. And it saved them the 9-hour road trip. So, I mean, I'm already a Jpeg fan. Every time I've spoken to her, she's an absolute delight. And so
do you think that would have been unlimited baggage allowance?
Well, probably the team, maybe they weren't allowed. Is it just one person, one seat?
Oh, yeah.
It might get a bit messy with that. But either way, It's super nice that she did that. And normally you see like maybe a jet for the winners of Indian Wells going to Miami. I think that's a bit more normal because you just picked up some big winnings. I'm not sure the jet probably, the winnings of the Austin Open covered the jet, but I think we all know that she's got plenty in reserve to cover the cost of that one.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an added incentive. If I knew that at the start of the week, I forget my get my transport paid for me to get to Indian Wells. That definitely would have spurred me on. But
Like
yeah,
a ride along scheme.
yeah. Oh my God, that would be amazing. But yeah, nice act by Jessica Pegula. We'll have to see how she gets on in Indian Wells. But as you said, there are a lot of tournaments to cover this week. We're going to get on to how Jessica Pegula got on in Atlanta later on. But we're going to start with the ATP weekly catch up as usual. And we're going to start in Dubai because Stefanos Tsitsipas is the champion. He defeated Felix Auger-Aliassime in quite a high quality final, actually. Straight set, 6-3, 6-3. Chris, Stefanos Tsitsipas. Last week, we were talking about him. We were sort of, not laughing, but we were sort of having a little laughter to ourselves about the fact that he just lost to Medvedev. He was on one leg, hobbling to the net, shaking his hand. Fast forward 7 days, and he's won a 500 title for the first time.
He has. What a reversal of fortunes. I think we didn't necessarily see it coming. We were hopeful when we saw the draw that maybe he'd be able to rectify what happened last week, because I don't want to say it was embarrassing last week, but for someone of his quality, he definitely shouldn't have lost when he did. So
people were saying like he was finished, or like this is a downward spiral that he's not going to come out of. I mean, that probably was a little bit extreme at the time, maybe from some tennis fans, but it didn't necessarily feel like we could see the light at the end of the tunnel.
No, and I'm not sure he necessarily did, but he did say when he posted a picture of himself, those of you who haven't seen, it's a giant boat is the trophy, a sort of a very sort of fabulous silver ship. Yes. And for the caption,
it's got Pirates of the Caribbean vibes.
It does. It looks pretty proper.
The Black Pearl.
The Silver Pearl. But
the Silver Pearl.
His caption was, they said my game was sinking, so I got myself a boat. So he's back afloat. His game is back afloat. And the thing that people think did it is that for the eagle-eyed tennis fans, you'd have seen he had a blacked out racket with the Wilson logo stenciled onto the strings. And normally when we see a blacked out racket, what this means is that someone is either trialing one of the rackets from that company, or they're secretly looking at making a swap, but they're still under contract with Wilson. And so the eagle-eyed would have been kind of looking at this and thinking, what has he gone for? And we're pretty sure that based on some pictures of it being restrung, Stringing Corner gave us the answers, Joel, that he swapped to a Babolat Pure Aero, either a 98 or a 100 square inch frame from his Wilson Blade 98. So this could be the reason. And the reason why this could be so good for him is because it actually does mean that he's more likely, the sweet spot's bigger, and that's obviously a big problem for him. Also should help with backhand topspin. And it's very sort of reminiscent of that swap that Federer made when he actually went from a 90 to a 97. And people really did credit that move as actually a really big reason why he was able to actually pick up some more slams later on in his career, because it's so much harder sort of with the small head size. So people thought maybe he should have picked it up earlier. And we know the backhand return has always been a problem. And so if this could potentially be a solution, because I'm pretty sure he's going to stick with it having won, do you think Tsitsipas really could be, well, not only back on the boat, but could he be sailing full steam ahead to potentially a major?
Well, I think he's now back into the top 10. So he's definitely built up some momentum. And certainly with the changes that he has made, I think there's opportunity certainly for him to kind of continue on. I think there's probably a few smaller steps before, for Grand Slams, but it certainly feels like he's rectifying some of those weaknesses that we feel like have always been in his game over the last few seasons. I mean, just talking about the final against Felix Auger-Aliassime, because Felix Auger-Aliassime has also been one of the form players this season so far. What did impress you the most from Tsitsipas? You spoke about this racket change. What do you think it brought out the most across the week in Dubai?
I mean, there still were quite a lot of unforced errors from both of the players. So I think the final was more about who won the points that mattered. They both had breakpoint opportunities. Tsitsipas was able to come through. I was just impressed, really, that he was able to take comfort, I think, in the fact that his backhand was that bit more secure,
Yeah.
that it was a bit better with his new racket, and clearly that confidence comes through, and in those big moments, it makes the difference. Felix was a bit disappointed, I think, with his performance. I think he was expecting a level higher, but I mean, I'm just rejoicing that Tsitsipas no longer has a 11-0 finals record in 500 finals, because I mean, that is one of the most shocking
Staggering.
numbers. It is to
It's
think that.
surprising because he's such a great athlete.
But he wins Masters.
And he wins, yeah, he wins Masters. He's done well at Grand Slams in the past. But I did enjoy this from Novak Djokovic because he said no one beats Stefanos Tsitsipas 12 times in a row on the 500 tour levels. So well done. So yeah, a very good result for Tsitsipas. And as I say, Felix Auger-Aliassime also playing well. I mean, it was quite an open tournament because Alex de Minaur was the second seed. He went out in the first round to Marin Cilic. And Daniil Medvedev, he left very, very unhappily on the court against Talon Griegspoor with the umpire because they got into a bit of a row. He sort of said to the umpire, "You're soft," on I think on a violation he gave him based on some words that he said. But yeah, Medvedev not having the greatest of tournaments here.
Yeah, it was a shame because he was up. And I think that is a big problem here, is that Medvedev should have won that match, but potentially his temperament really did stop him. He had match points. He could have got it done in 2 sets. And arguably, you'd think that he would have been the favourite to come home with the title. He's still yet to win a title. Hasn't won a title in over a year. So he's searching for form. And it is a bit strange, some of these outbursts that we're seeing. He's still in good spirits after the match. He's laughing about net cam and all these sorts of things. But I mean, he is definitely lashing out a little bit when it came to kind of accusing sort of a double standard against Russians, which did not go down well. And I think that the umpire really did take offense to that. I think that's something that obviously they are, by their code of conduct, definitely not allowed to do. And that is obviously an accusation that you're kind of saying to the umpire that they won't agree with. So you're not going to win any favors there. And I think probably he'd be looking back at that match and thinking, how on earth did I lose it? So we thought this would be a turning point. We thought maybe the 250 would have been a turning point, but he still is titleless. But never count Medvedev out because he's dropped out of the top 10 before. He's not there yet. And then he's come back and reached major finals. So it's a phase. I think he does this every now and then, but I expect to see him very much competitive on the tour in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I saw some stats on social media around his speed of his ground strokes on the court, and actually of the kind of the elite level players, his kind of ground stroke speed's actually quite slow compared to the rest of the field. And I do wonder if like it's not quick enough, but also what's damaging that is the fact that it feels like the court surfaces, the general kind of speed of the courts are getting slower as well. And it doesn't feel like it's helping Medvedev. I mean, as I say, like I was looking at this kind of chart of his speeds versus other players. It was down there with like Alex de Minaur. And you think with Daniil Medvedev that he needs to have a little bit, maybe a bit more purchase when it comes to those kind of rallying strokes from the baseline, because it feels like at the moment it's giving his opponents too much of an opportunity to get a handle on the points.
He has always been about, dragging the points out and been a bit of a counterpuncher in that sort of respect. But you do need 3 points if you're going to come through some of these matches. And if he could have had a bigger serve potentially at certain times when he was down and when he had match points, or whether he was able to hit a bit harder on the return, put more pressure on, maybe he would have forced an error. But at the same time, his game has never necessarily always been to hit the biggest on the tour. I don't think we see him as necessarily a big hitter. And I think that's why he does so well at the slams, because you really do have to beat him normally over 5 sets. That's quite a challenge. And he does. He's come back from 2 sets down before. He's so good at making the long matches work in his favor. So I'm not too concerned by that. I think you can still get good results, but it does probably mean that maybe you're not going to be winning as many matches if you aren't hitting as hard as you used to.
Yeah. Well, one player who does hit big and does hit aggressive, Tomas Machac, He was the champion in Acapulco in Mexico in a final against Alejandro Davidovich Fekina. Again, straight set, 7-6, 6-2 to Machac. Now, Chris, I didn't know this, but Machac going into this tournament, he was the highest ranked player not to have a tour level title. He's now ticked that off the checklist. He's into the top 20 as well. 10-2 on the season, 110, lost 2. How impressed were you with Tomas Machac with his week in Acapulco?
I mean, very impressed. I think a lot of people have been thinking this would be coming quite soon. He has really moved up the rankings so quickly. I think probably the thing that was a bigger talking point in this tournament is actually the fact that so many players went down with food poisoning or stomach bugs. There was one day where the likes of Holger Rune went out, as well as Tommy Paul, Casper Ruud, none of them actually being able to play tennis that day or have to withdraw very early on in their matches. And then Ben Shelton also was affected by this. And there are also rumors that this was also affecting Zverev. So essentially, they dropped like flies in Acapulco. So although I'm not necessarily saying that's the only reason why he won, he is a player of quality and he did beat the players in front of him. But you have to think that you'd expect some of those big names to have made a deeper run here.
Interesting. I mean, just on Machac, do you see him as just kind of like where do you think his level is? Do you think he can push even higher than top 20? Do you think he's a top 10 per person perhaps? Or do you think that's too high?
I think he's a very, very talented player. I think he's very fun to watch. I think there's definitely potential there. In terms of when I've seen him play in some of the bigger tournaments, I was quite surprised by how easily he went down to Novak Djokovic. So I think it'd be interesting to see what he can do.
I had that on upset.
You did. You were really upset by that, actually, weren't you? It was on upset and you were upset. He has actually beaten Djokovic previously. I think that was last year. But he has had some big results, but not at the majors. So I think probably sits right with me that he's between sort of 15 and 20, could push to number 14 maybe. But it does depend on getting a bigger result at a slam. I think he would be great on grass. Yep. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But definitely an exciting player to watch. And I think a lot of people enjoy watching him play.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be a dark horse type threat player that none of the seeds will want to be playing in that kind of round 2, round 3, round 4 match because, yeah, he is a very dangerous opponent. And Davidovich Fekina as well. I mean, he is a very handy player on his day, but he just seems to be coming up short at the moment in finals. And against someone as solid as Machac, I think he was almost kind of getting a little bit frustrated with himself and he wasn't necessarily going for it. I feel like he was playing a little bit within him and he needs to kind of just almost kind of embrace it a bit more, go for it. And see where that takes you because he's just letting his opponent, I think, in those moments get on top and take all of that momentum.
Yeah, he's not famous either for having the coolest of heads in important moments. And the fact that he was so close to winning his first title so recently, I think that probably would be preying on his mind. Yeah, I do think it would have been. And I mean, he was on bonus time at this tournament because he was, I think, 4 match points down in his first round. So having been match points up to win a title, he then was match points down, won that one. It's all fine doing that in round 1. But when you want to do that, it's probably when you're in a final. So still some good results. It's nice to see him putting the results together. But then again, probably going to end up being a little bit of a Felix Auger-Aliassime in terms of that final record. He might be competing for most losses in finals coming up soon.
His mentality, his tennis is a good level at the moment. It's his mental approach, I think, that's probably holding him back. So we need to see if that will change over the season. If he can do that, who knows? Yeah, maybe he can add some titles to his trophy cabinet. But there was one other tournament on the clay at the Chile Open as part of the Golden Swing. And at this moment, I was expecting to say Sebastian Baez was your winner going back to back, but actually Laslo Djere won and defeated Baez in the final. A real tight tussle, 6-4, 3-6, 7-5. This was Djere's third career title, first in almost 5 years. He's now back into the top 100. So yeah, another decent result for a decent player who, yeah, is a little bit, I think, underappreciated. He's been on the tour for a while. And if you can defeat Baez on the Golden Swing on clay, you know you're playing at a good level.
Definitely. And he hasn't really been at the races for a little while now.
Mm.
I think he does regularly play the Golden Swing. So I think he's probably more of a Golden Swing specialist than we might think. Um, Laslo, but at the same time, I did see him play in Hamburg. I think it was was it last year, a couple of years ago? And he made the final there. And I was very impressed by the way that he can hit so well off both
Yeah.
wings. Very technically sound, just never really seemed to have that sort of extra punch to go behind some of his strokes. But I mean, again, you don't want to play him early in a slam, that's for sure. And I mean, Baez, he still won't be too unhappy. In fact, he defended the bigger title in Rio. It's not a bad run anyway, isn't the Golden Swing for him?
He is like the most Golden Swing specialist of specialists. I mean, he was on an 8-match winning run, a 7 in Santiago as well, because I think he won the title here last year. So yeah, he just loves playing. He would just wish the Golden Swing was just like a tour of its own.
It's not a swing, yeah. The golden
circle,
season, yeah.
The golden circle, yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, good performance from him as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure he will try and do something on the hard courts. I'm not sure how that's going to go, but he'll be saving himself for clay to see if he can have a few more upsets, maybe go a bit deeper against some of the more highly ranked opponents. But I'm not thinking he's going to be making a dent on the grass anytime soon.
Well, let's catch up now on the WTA action on the WTA Tour. But before we do, Chris, we've got to talk about the big news. The big news this week ahead of Indian Wells, the rebrand. The WTA have unveiled, in their words, a bold new brand identity with the call to rally the world. Let me just read some of the press statement before we kind of get into it. The WTA on Thursday unveiled a bold new brand identity for a new era shaped by players, fans, and partners worldwide to elevate the WTA's impact as a leader in sports and entertainment. With a powerful logo and striking color, the brand captures and amplifies the spirit and energy of the WTA, bringing the drama of women's tennis to life like never before. Wow, I'm so engrossed in this right now. Please give me a reality check. What did you make of this new era we're now living in, this new identity that the WTA have unveiled? What were your thoughts when it got released?
I mean, I did kind of get some heart palpitations when I saw that they were going away from purple. This green heart emerged on social media. So anyone, please look it up. If not, please come and have a little look on our YouTube channel where there will be a video. We will put a visual for you at this point. It does look a little bit like a tennis game as opposed to real tennis. It feels quite like esports, I kind of feel like, or maybe it looks like a new app.
They got rid of the player silhouette, haven't they?
They did. The player silhouette's gone, which was quite iconic already. The purple is gone. I don't dislike the font. The logo's quite nice. I think that's absolutely fine. It is a modernization. I think it sits quite nicely. But then I also do just think the green is a strange choice. And we are also a green-based podcast. So our thumbnails have got a lot harder, Joel. That's my main takeout. But I mean, I like the idea of it. Rally the world, I think that's very loose. I'm not sure exactly what that will stand for, but it is positive that the WTA is trying to, change things up. They are on a big revenue push. They do want to raise the profile. And I do like some of the content they've produced around, putting the players at the heart of it. If you make the player profiles bigger, then women's tennis gets bigger. And I think that's really nice. It kind of reminds me of the Strong is Beautiful campaign, but like without the actual idea behind it in terms of, they're telling like why the tennis court is their stage for greatness. And I think when you're someone like Gabby Dabrowski, who's saying, I had breast cancer last year, I still made the Wimbledon final, then I won the end of season finals. And you just think, wow, like these are incredible people. And so I think that works so nicely. And I think it's a great way to champion these stories. But I do think it's a bit at odds to, sort of the esports sort of bright, sort of lime green that we see. So I'm missing the purple, Joel. But having said that, we must embrace change and we must just support this and hope this will do something good for the tour.
Yeah, do you know what? I agree with you in the sense that I do like that it's very player focused, and I like this kind of framing of the tennis court as a stage. And I think it's a really good platform from where their players collectively can tell their own stories. They all have great individual personalities, and I think this really sets it up for that. I do think the aesthetics are a little bit like harsh, and
it's a bit wild, isn't it? I was surprised.
I'm a bit, yeah. I feel like the message and the presentation is actually a little bit let down for me personally by some of the colors on show, but yeah, I do like the sentiment of it, and we'll have to see how it goes. I always think with brand identities, they're so hard to get right. You're not going to be able to kind of please everyone at any moment, and I was reading some of the comments from fans, and there's a lot around like you focused all your resources on this and not on more important issues like where's WTA TV, for example.
Where is WTA TV?
Well, yeah, I know that is true, but I do think this is a start. I do sort of wonder about the timing. Like you sort of would have wanted this to come in at the start of the season,
for a calendar year,
on the off season. I get that the off season is that's a very small window to work with now, but it's a very kind of interesting point to kind of kick off the sunshine swing, as it were. But yeah, I guess we'll have to see how it goes. But I do like the fact that it does offer that sort of flexibility to cover all these different stories, because as you said, there are some incredible players and stories out there. Gabby Dabrowski, I saw a vignette for Naomi Osaka as well, and getting them front and center, that is what is going to excite tennis fans, and that's what the WTA should be set up for.
I agree, and I think it's a bit of a shame that the week they have launched it, there was a 6-love final.
I know.
That's not necessarily one of the stories that you'd want to put a spotlight on, and this is not a tennis court; it's a stage for greatness. I'm not sure it quite worked out that way in the final at Merida Open. But what did you make of that one? We're talking now about the result for Emma Navarro, who did win. I
always feel so uncomfortable talking about these results because they do go down as
they're infamous, aren't they?
They're infamous results. We all remember Swiatek versus Pliskova in the Rome final back in 2021, which was the last time a WTA final ended in a double bagel. I mean, I want to say first of all, Emiliana Arango qualifier. I mean, this is an incredible story to get to the final. With a 500 to go all the way through qualifying and get to the final. She probably would put a lot of mileage in the legs. So to come up with against someone like Navarro, that was always going to be a tough start to begin with. But having said that, yeah, Navarro just was just ruthless, wasn't she? She just kind of steamrolled her opponent, and Arango, I felt, kind of ran out of gas, ran out of ideas, and for a player who has been mixing it up on the ITF and WTA of late, it might have kind of given her, if there was one thing to take away, it might have given her an idea of what I need to develop with my game, and I think a bit more variety would help to kind of get a kind of a foothold at the WTA Tour at the highest level.
For sure. I mean, you can never mock anyone for making a final. I think what happens in a final, it doesn't always go your way. You just hope it won't go this way. Again, I don't think she'll be necessarily too disheartened by the fact that she's made a 500 final. The draw was very much giving ITF, so maybe some familiar opponents that she faced along the way.
Yeah.
That is a question mark I have, because it didn't feel like this was a bigger draw than the next tournament we're going to talk about, which is over in Austin. This felt like there was a top seed here, and then it almost felt like there was a rule that meant you couldn't really have anyone else in the draw at play, but actually it's a 500. So maybe it falls at a time when everyone's getting ready for what is now the 2 1000s in a row, which actually is putting more pressure on that part of the season. And then it's these sorts of tournaments that probably shouldn't be at 500 level just before.
I mean, Arango didn't face a seeded player in the bottom half, so arguably she got the luck of the draw as well to get through to the final. But what is it about this thing with 500s at the moment? Because, last week we spoke about Baez at the Rio Open, winning there, but not really facing anyone, too high up the rankings. And again, here we've had a bit of a mismatch in the final. It seems to be a problem that is maybe facing the ATP and WTA. Why is it, do you think, that we're getting these sorts of draws that it feels like there's too much variability in the quality between some 500s that we're seeing on the tours at the moment.
I mean, we do have it sometimes at 1,000 level as well. I think when Guadalajara at 1,000 level, that was not necessarily the most populous or most popular tour stop for people to attend, even though it was a 1,000. And there are these sort of mandatory tournaments that are also really kind of taking up a lot of your season. So I think for the top players, they're trying to manage their bodies, and it seems like a natural time to skip some of these, like the Golden Swing. Who wants to go from clay back to hard courts if you are thinking about your body and the physicality of that? So I do think that's probably a reason this time of year might just be, we might be in quiet season, Joel. And I think that could be why some of these draws are suffering from star power. But thankfully, these sorts of results don't happen too often. And I was wondering, apart from that result for Iga against Pliskova, can you name any other double bagels?
Oh,
I didn't name any of these.
It doesn't happen that often. I could literally only think of that Świątek Pliskova
of recent
result.
memory. Well, I can give you a couple of them. Marion Bartley in Quebec, 2006.
Wow.
Radwanska took out Cibulkova in 2013 Sydney. I do not remember that result being so one-sided. And then in Bucharest, Simona Halep took out Sevastova. So it doesn't happen often. And I think probably this one isn't quite the same as that Świątek result, where we were all thinking, goodness, this is a statement win. This is more of a, oh goodness, this is the state of a 500, which is a bit of a shame. The same time you're announcing, the new branding of the WTA. It's not exactly the headline event.
It's an unfortunate moment. But we did have a very good final between two Americans, actually, in the Atlanta Open. The Austin Open in Texas, where Jessica Pegula defeated McCartney Kessler, All-American final, 7-5, 6-2. Matthew McConaughey was there. Jpeg, doing, she was the top seed, did very well to kind of come through a draw. Nice win over Tomjanovic in the semi-finals as well. And Chris, I enjoyed this. You're gonna love this. This was the first All-American US final since Sloane Stephens defeated Madison Keys to win the 2017 US Open. I can't believe it's been that long.
It doesn't feel like it should have been that long. You'd have thought that there would have been a few clashes, maybe in Charleston or something like that, a really popular tournament with the US players, or even at some of the bigger tournaments in the US. There's no shortage of tournaments that happen over there. But I mean, Pegula, she came there with a mission. She left with the title. She won over Matthew McConaughey. I think this is the perfect preparation for her hardcourt swing and the Sunshine Double. I mean, pretty easy sailing apart from a really tough match with Tomjanovic. And then the final against a player who took out Coco Gauff in straight sets last week. Clearly in form, Kessler. I think it was really impressive that she did get it done. Because I did think maybe this wouldn't be the result that she'd be looking for, given the form that Kessler's had recently. So Pegula got it done. That's what she needed to get done. Hard to know where her form really is, but I think we'll find out pretty soon.
Do you feel like there's an argument to say that the reason you have those 500 events in Mexico is that you have to tempt players out of the comfort zone of America, much nearer Indian Wells, for example, and a way to do that is through ranking points?
Potentially that could be an option. I think it's always kind of historically there's been the Acapulco on the men's side that has been at this sort of time of year. The women's event was also there for quite a long time as well. I think it is probably to do with the fact that after Australia, and if you have gone to the Middle East, it is a lot of travel. So maybe there is something in it. And that's also why Guadalajara was a 1,000 as well, but then got downgraded from that. I think the tendency will be in between the big weeks where you have to play. It probably would be going to a 250 at home, spend some time at home. It's very tempting, isn't it? So you might get a few players who are searching for the ranking points, but you're probably going to get the top tier of player.
Right. We're going to take a quick break now. Do join us in the second half where we will be discussing Jannik Sinner's Laureus Award and nomination being withdrawn. And we look ahead to the Sunshine Swing with Indian Wells first up in Paradise Springs. So do not go anywhere. Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast. And as always, it's time to start with another game. And it is me, the quiz master, this time in the hot seat. A par for the courts for you, Chris. Par
Hmm.
for the Court solo edition. Kim, we must say, she's sunning herself up in. Well, I'm going to forget. Was it
Ibiza.
Portugal? Oh, Ibiza. Very good. Very
Yes.
nice.
Very nice, isn't it? She is there. So who was taking on who? And am I trying to win for both of us?
You're trying to win for both of you, yes. And yeah, I do have a Par for the Courts for you and our listeners. And it's a very topical one. There's a little clue there for you. But your Par for the Courts, your category is this. There are 10 players who have completed the career ATP suite of ATP 250, ATP 500, Masters 1000, and ATP Finals.
Oh, wow.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 levels of events, not including Grand Slams. So 250, 500, 1000, and ATP Finals. 10 players have won a title at each of those levels. You probably have a guess why I'm asking you this. But yeah. And just to actually add, this all started in 2009. So this classification, as it were. So
Right.
again, gives you a little bit of an idea of the types of players I am looking for. But there are 10 in total.
10 in total. And they
Yep.
have to have won the ATP finals.
ATP Finals, Masters 1000, ATP 500, ATP 250. And
Right.
I am going to set par score at. Ooh. Are you feeling confident?
I was confident last time and I think I lost. So
Oh,
we'll
it's hard
see.
to gauge. I'm going to say, I'm going to be like, let's say 6 out of 10. 6
And
out of
there are
10.
10 to name.
Indeed.
Well, my full plan for this is just to go for people who I know have won the ATP finals. Because that is the hardest one to win from that list.
It's a good strategy.
I mean, I hope it is. I'm going to go for. I'm hoping Novak Djokovic has done this. That would. This would be
Novak
a bad
Djokovic.
start. Yes,
That is a correct answer. Well done. That is one mark.
I'm going to have to go for Federer as well.
Correct. Yep. Roger Federer also on the list. So that's 2.
One player, and very sorry, Kim. I will not be saying Nadal because he's never won the ATP finals. So he is out, which narrows it down slightly. Um, I probably should go for Jannik Sinner.
Jannik Sinner is a correct answer. Yes. So that is 3 correct answers. You're already halfway there to achieving the par score.
You did mention a player make this topical, which I imagine probably is Stefanos Tsitsipas, is what I'm thinking, because he did win the ATP finals, I think, probably about 6 years ago now. I'm going to say Tsitsipas.
Sissipas is a correct answer. Yes. He completed it this week. Very topical. So yeah, that is a correct answer. So that's 4.
I feel like I've got 5, but I'll take 4.
So you've got Djokovic, Federer, Sinner, Sissipas.
Right, okay. I
That's
was
4.
wishful thinking there. Probably Zverev has done it. I imagine he's won at 250 level.
Alexander Zverev is a correct answer. Yes, very good. So that's 5. You're 1 away from par for this week. Oh, it's tense. It's tense. You've got 5 correct answers. I need 1 more.
Um, this is a bit trickier. I imagine Medvedev has done it, but I think Murray might be a better bet. I'm gonna say Andy Murray.
Andy Murray, is that your final answer?
It is, but I'm a bit worried now.
Andy Murray is a correct answer. Yes,
Oh,
very good. You have reached par for this week. So well done. Let's see if you can go on. Can you get 100%?
I was going to say Medvedev,
Yep, you could have given me Medvedev. Medvedev on the list.
and then
So it's three names left.
3 names left. This is not easy. I guess it's just the 3. Anyone who I can name who's won the end of season finals. Rogue One, Davydenko.
Wow, very good. Yes, Davydenko on the list. Nikolai Davydenko has won 250, 500, 1000, and the ATP finals.
And what do we have left then? We've got how many?
Two.
Two. This is hard, isn't it? Is there anyone really obvious that I haven't done?
I'm not going to say anything.
Ugh, I'm just gonna. I don't know, but Dimitrov's won the ATP finals. I don't know if that's right. I don't know if he's won a Masters.
Grigor Dimitrov is a correct answer,
Yeah.
Chris. Yeah. So you could, if you got one more answer, you could get 100%. There is one more name. One more name.
I don't have one. I can't think of a single other person who's won the ATP finals since when was it?
2009.
I'm fully out, I'm afraid.
Okay. Right. I'm going to give you
Listeners are probably screaming.
I'm going to give you those. You could have given me, so Djokovic, Davydenko, Federer, Murray, Dimitrov, Zverev, Medvedev, Sinner, Tsitsipas, and David Nalbandian.
Nalbandian.
Yes, David Nalbandian on the list. Yep.
Wait, so he won the ATP finals after
Mhm.
2009?
Yep. On the list.
Wow.
On the list.
I did not know that. Actually thought maybe he'd retired at that point. But
I know.
well, now we know. But
There you go.
either way, I got the win, right?
Yep. You got the win. Well done.
I'll take it.
Right. We don't have a mailbag this week, so we're going to move on to our talking point for the second half, and it is Jannik Sinner and his nomination for the Laureus World Sportsman of the Year awards. Now, this has been withdrawn after he was given a 3-month doping ban. He's serving that at the moment. We're going to get into a bit more detail on what he's been up to while serving this in a bit. But yeah, what were your kind of reactions from this? I mean, the chairman, Sean Fitzpatrick, of the Laureus World Sports Academy said this: following discussions by the Laureus Academy, it has been decided that Jannik Sinner's nomination for this year's Laureus World Sportsman of the Year award is to be withdrawn. We have followed this case, the decisions of the relevant global bodies, and whilst we note the extenuating circumstances involved, feel that the 3-month ban renders the nomination ineligible. What do you think of this? Do you think this is the right call?
I mean, I do think it's the right call. I think it's probably one of the only institutions that has probably made the right call when it's come to this. I think everyone else has stuck on the side of things where, because of the circumstances involved and the fact that everyone is saying that this is completely the opposite of, what was it last week, a million miles away from doping, they've kind of latched on to that side of thinking, all the sponsors, and not had any repercussions in that way for him. In the same way that quite a lot of the other pit players who've been banned for doping have actually suffered more significantly from a loss of earnings perspective. I do think they can't really, give him an award if he is currently banned at the time for doping offences. So the timing of the ban might potentially have also led to it being particularly awkward if the world number one turns up to win a Sportsman of the Year award whilst actively serving a doping ban. Also, he might not even be able to attend that event, I was thinking, because you can't basically hang out with tennis players at all. So that would have been a bit awkward as well.
There'll be like bouncers on the door being like, you can't, Sinner, you can't come in. You can't.
So he'd have to accept over Zoom, I imagine, from the confines of his home, which has a tennis court. But it's all a bit awkward. But I think I found most strange is that they announced the fact that it had been withdrawn, the nomination, but they only announced the nominations today, and this news came last week. So I guess they wanted to get ahead of the question and the fact that he is obviously so dominant at the moment, and he obviously isn't going to be on the list. So that's one thing. But the bigger question I have, Joel, Carlos Alcaraz is nominated. That was announced today. I think he has previously won this. What are your thoughts on that? Because normally there aren't two tennis players nominated, and have they basically said they were going to nominate Sinner, and then when he was out the running, they put in Carlos instead?
I mean, I would put 2 and 2 together here, and it does feel like they've just kind of swapped like for like tennis players. I do admire them for being kind of fully transparent and not kind of keeping it hush hush and just kind of basically saying, Carlos Alcaraz was kind of first choice regardless. But I think I do think there's kind of like causation there. But having said that, I think Carlos Alcaraz is still a great kind of nomination. He's a very high level athlete. He's a role model, to the tennis world, and beyond. So I don't have any kind of issues there. Do I necessarily think he's gonna win? I feel like there are other nominations that
If you weren't
maybe
the
are more
first choice in
deserving.
tennis, it makes you think maybe you wouldn't be the first
Yeah.
choice for the world sportsman of
I
the
mean,
year.
Max Verstappen, Carlos Alcaraz, Duplantis, the pole vaulter, Pogacar cyclist,
Pogacar, yeah.
and Leon Marchand, the swimmer from France. So yeah, I feel like there's
Duplantis is what I'm getting from that.
yeah.
Breaking what was it, the 12th world record already. But
He
I
just
mean,
breaks world records for fun.
he does, and I think that it is in Madrid, so I expect Carlos will attend. But do you also agree that Sinner is right that he isn't on this list?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's only really one outcome. So he's just got to take all of this, with the punishment. I'm sure there will be years in the future where, if he can continue with the tennis he has, the level he's been playing, that he might be in a future nomination, depending on what the rules and
Well, will all
regulations
be
are.
forgotten though in the
Yeah,
future, or
that's
will the
true.
question mark still exist for the Sportsman of the
Yeah.
Year? I mean, it's obviously something that says
Mm.
sportsman, and when it came to some of the awards on the ATP tour, he also wasn't nominated. And from a coaching perspective, in that category as well, based on what was going on at the time. But I mean, one player who will have a shot at winning it on the WTA side is Arina Sabalenka. So she has been nominated.
Mm.
Again, I think it's quite a tricky one when you have two players who probably are quite neck and neck on the tour. But again, Iga Swiatek obviously was banned for a doping offence as well. So it might be making it a bit easier to choose between some of these players, because you just go for who isn't currently or who hasn't been banned for doping in a year when they could have been nominated. But I mean, her chances of winning probably not going to pip the likes of, Simone Biles for the title. I can see that one being quite likely. But I mean, at the end of the day, tennis is nominated in both categories, and no one nominated for tennis has committed a doping offense. So that is something.
Mm. And Jannik Sinner, as alluded to earlier, in his time off, he's just having a nice time. I mean, he was in Milan, papped on Tuesday evening this week at the Gucci 2025 fall stroke winter fashion show. I saw him next to Anna Wintour. He looked very casual, actually. He was wearing his white trainers, dark outfit. But yeah, he's looking. He's just enjoying his time off, isn't he?
Well, some people were quite critical of this. It's like, well, no, he has a Gucci contract. Like, he has to be there. So, like, maybe he did want to hide away for a bit. But, I mean, Anna Wintour, I've never seen her laugh as hard as when she was chatting with Jannik Sinner. And I'm not sure we always see him as being the most humorous character on the tour. So I'd like to kind of think about what were they talking about? Was it something about, like, you got some free time now, Jannik, or something like that? But she really did, find that whatever comment he made very amusing. But he's been keeping himself busy as well. He's been doing other things, hasn't he, Joel?
Yeah, I mean, he was spotted skiing as well, in northern Italy, and he was all smiles with
It's a
a young
holiday,
fan
it
as well.
is.
So it's just having a holiday. It's just having a holiday. So yeah, we'll see if we'll see what level he comes back to, and I presumably he comes back for the Italian Open in Rome. But yeah, he's enjoying his time off at the moment. Where will he go next? What other activities can he get in this sort of enforced like off season?
I'm thinking he can do some photo shoots that can come out, some interviews he could prepare in advance, maybe writing a book about what went down. I can see that
Oh,
being a bit
okay.
of a bestseller. Like,
I was just thinking getting on a Vespa or something around.
oh, that could be quite nice. Heading
Is it
down
Milan,
south, Sicily
Naples?
could be
Yeah,
nice,
Sicily.
very
Yeah.
nice. But I was thinking a book called Klosterbol,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and a big sort
It'd
of
be
bread
a lot of
sticker on it
be a
saying,
big seller. It would be a big seller. But
it would just don't touch it and then massage anybody.
I mean, moving on. So back to the tennis, and Jannik Sinner is suspended at the moment. He won't be at Indian Wells, which is coming up. Starts on Wednesday. The draw is tonight, so very much looking forward to that. So yeah, Indian Wells quite an interesting one. Without, I think that the world number one on the men's side. I mean, Carlos Alcaraz is the defending champion. Iga Swiatek is the defending women's champion as well. Before we get into kind of talking about the players, who's there, who isn't there, one of the big talking points, Chris, has been around the court surface. Because the chat is that they have basically moved surface providers from PlexiPave. Sorry, it's a tongue twister already. PlexiPave to Lakehold. And this is the same surface used at the Miami Open and the US Open since 2020. And they're known for their faster pace. So people are wondering and thinking that Indian Wells is going to play a bit faster than it usually does because, you know, we tend to associate it a little bit more with slower conditions, higher bounce, thanks to its kind of, its climate, local climate to the desert, etc. Yeah, what do you think of this? Who do you think this might favour, and who do you think might be thinking, I'm not going to have a good time of it out in the desert?
Well, I'm pretty sure that Medvedev said it played like a slower than a clay court. We've had those sorts of comments, and I think the nature of the air, the very dry conditions as well, also means that it has tended to not necessarily create the most epic of matches. No. Quite a lot of errors. I think we've
seen a lot
of
wind as well. I always think about it's a really it feels like a challenging, particularly that stadium court to play on.
Yeah, it is. It is tricky the way the wind blows. I think that is different. There are definitely preferred ends of that court. I think probably, speedier courts are what people quite like. They talk about the fact that they're trying to make more consistency going between the tournaments and more consistency of surface and conditions. I'm not sure.
Do we want more consistency?
I mean, you don't want a clay court to play like a grass court, that's for sure. Yeah. But I think
you don't want every single hard court to be like
the same. It would be very boring. Yeah, I mean, if it's the same colours as well, it would be particularly dull. And I think probably people hoping this will speed things up. I'm not sure it will particularly, because I think, Joel, you did some digging about the fact that it isn't actually as slow as we all think.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, I feel like a lot of this is we'll know once the play begins, and I mean, at the moment, it's it was
the second slowest, but Miami's
slowest.
Quicker. No, it's quicker than Miami. Miami is the slowest, so maybe there's something else. The hot conditions mean that it travels a lot quicker potentially there, but I mean. Either way, I think it's nice to see that this will be a little bit less laboured, because the longer the points are, the more injured players become, and the more you'll see people swapping rackets and having to make adjustments and having to take time off the tour. But the other news that really caught my eye is that Andy Murray is jetting over to Indian Wells, Joel. The partnership is very much continuing for both of the Sunshine Swing tournaments, and it's the first time that Djokovic is, well, if he plays it, will play Miami since 2019. So we may not have Jannik Sinner, but we have got Novak Djokovic, a player who has not done...
The power couple is back.
The power couple is
back. The power
back.
Coaching couple.
Indeed. I'm not sure they see themselves as a couple, or their partners would see them as a couple, but they are coupled
They'd
up.
Be quite worried,
from the tennis side of things. But I mean, from the women's side, on the top seeds... We talked about this last week, we haven't seen the top three seeds playing particularly well.
Oh. And we haven't seen Madison Keys either on the tennis
court. It's her big
court.
Return. So what do you make of this and her return? Do you think that this could be a tournament where she does put out a marker, or is it just very hard to back up such a big result?
I think so I feel like so much has happened. It's almost to me like a little bit of a free pass, but in theory it is her homecoming, and it's a great opportunity to make a statement. And the American ladies are playing well. It was unfortunate. I think it sounded like Madison Keys wanted to play in Austin, wasn't able to, but Jessica Pegula and Emma Navarro are playing very good tennis at the moment. So it feels like there's quite a few Americans to kind of keep an eye on, but certainly the unknown factor around Madison Keys and whether she can, I say, bring that consistency that we kind of always talked about, I think, in her career, I think is one of the big question marks for me, kind of going into the women's event.
She'll have a good chance, I think, at one of the two making a deep run. I think it tends to be potentially Miami, where she performs that bit better. But on the men's side, I mean, you would quite like to draw a top 5 seed, I think, because Zverev obviously has not had the form. Also, Taylor Fritz has not been in form at all. Casper Ruud just came down with a virus and is not necessarily always famous for his hardcourt game, even though he's very underrated in that area, I would say. And then Medvedev hasn't found any form either. So Is this the most open it has been? And what is it? What do you think of Zverev, the number one seed? It doesn't quite feel right, does it?
I mean, the way he's been, I think, playing since the Jannik Sinner stuff has happened, I think it's fair to say that, this is a great big opportunity for him to become the world number one, arguably a better opportunity than he's ever going to get, maybe. And whether that is taking its toll, because he's had some very indifferent performances recently, going out in tournaments early, didn't have a great golden swing, and then to add all of that, to be then the top seed of the fifth Grand Slam of the year, it's going to add another. It's going to add even more
could
pressure.
Could be the perfect storm, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Might not be the easiest.
It might not be the easiest. So again, I wouldn't be surprised if we do get some shocks earlier on. And I mean, Novak Djokovic as well. I think that will be an interesting one because he didn't have, he did have that warm up tournament in Doha, but went out to
Berrettini,
yeah. So I think there's a lot of unknowns, and we could be in for some surprise champions, perhaps.
Okay, well, we will post our predictions when the draw is out onto our social media. We'll see if Joel is still sticking to the idea of a surprise there.
Thomas Machac is going to be the Indian World Champion.
Interesting.
Maybe I'll say that before the draws have come out.
I might go McConaughey favourites, Tommy Paul and Jpeg.
Oh, okay. I like it. Yeah, we're going to look at the draws when they come out, and we'll be posting that on our social media. But we're going to wrap up our latest tour catch-up here at Tennis Weekly HQ. As always, we hope you've enjoyed the ride with us. Remember to subscribe to us so you don't miss a moment of ATP and WTA action. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and all your favourite podcasting platforms out there. And if you love what you're hearing, then be sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube.
We're also on social media, and we should make it very clear this is a video episode if you'd like to watch it back.
I got a haircut.
Yes, he did get a haircut, especially for this. And please don't tell him if you don't like it. I think it would affect you deeply.
Yeah,
Joel,
my sideburns are too... Sorry, my sideburns, the sides are too short.
They are gone.
But it's another reason you should watch video just so you can actually give me maybe some tips on my haircut.
Stay abreast of all of that action on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X, and the handle for all of those is Tennis Weekly Pod. We are also able to answer your questions on Mailbag, and you can email a mailbag question to us, tennisweeklypod@gmail.com, or you can visit our website, tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we'll be back next week for another tour catch-up. But until then, it's goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on Tennis Weekly.